I think socialist Ray Oldenburg coined a very interesting term called third place, right? And which he said basically the first place is your home, second place is work, right? But he said that we really need a third place, which is a neutral ground. And in today's context, that neutral ground could be a public park, a library, a cafe, or a place like the Neighbourhood Festival where everybody comes together, right? Yeah. So now, in that context of the third place, right, I would just like to understand from each of you, like, if you can recall a specific moment or a particular memory, right, where you felt the strength of community or collective most strongly, like that was possibly the pivotal moment where you felt the importance of community.
I think from the memories that you gave, it came back to me. I mean, I grew up in Delhi, and at the time that I was growing up in Delhi, that was the one thing that I didn't like. The fact that in Delhi, people's idea of community it was much more individualistic and much more classist, and there was a segregation constantly between you and the world around you. And when I came to Bombay, I said, "Arey, what is this paradise? It's मतलब यहाँ पे लोग तो मतलब आपको घर तक छोड़ने के लिए तैयार है कोई stranger, and left to yourself also, you don't get disturbed by anybody either. Like nobody cares if you're. So I saw a lot of really great, amazing goodwill individually from people in smaller spaces. But a big kind of community thing I felt when the floods had happened, which was 2005 or 6, yeah, 5, yeah. And it was just incredible to see how just people opened up their homes, their spaces, they just came out to help everyone with no kind of like specific organization trying to do it, but people just coming out, giving free water, free food to people. That sense of community I feel in Bombay in general I've always felt. And that's one of the things that it's my greatest love for Bombay comes from that sense of community. And that may have changed shape and form over the years, but it has never changed in essence. And that's something that I find really incredible. Every time I come back to Bombay, that sense of community comes back. But yeah, that was during the flood was one of the times where I saw it being played out so obviously and in a much bigger scale in a moment where nobody needed to or was उस वक्त तो सोशल मीडिया पे इतना नहीं था कि तुम सोशल मीडिया में फेमस बन जाओगे for your generosity. So it was just purely just a basic act of humanity.
I think my distinct memory, if you ask me, I have this really stark distinct. So I grew up in Bandra. I've been born and raised in this 2 kilometer radius. I went to this convent school called St. Aloysius, which is close by, and I have a very stark memory. Maybe I can defend this community now, perhaps looking back at it. So I remember that the riots had broken out in Bombay. I don't know how many people are here from Bombay, but 92 was a really bad time, and we were much younger then, and all in school. And somebody said, riots have broken out, and people are unheard of. We've never witnessed something like this, and as growing up, it's very shocking. And somebody said, there's been an explosion and Mahim is burning. Now, Mahim, for those that know or don't know, is very close to Bandra. You can literally see it now across the ceiling. And the thing, it was on fire. They had heard some bombs, and of course, later on became the whole, the whole Tiger Wing controversy that came up, and how they found burnt it. But the important thing, at that point, we were all in school, and we were all kids at the time, and it was a convent school, like I mentioned. But a bunch of us, we said we wanted to leave and we would get home, and parents started to pick up children, and we were panicking. But a bunch of students, class-wise, because we had, being a convent school, they were largely, women who were teaching us. So the boys it was still a 10th standard school. The boys of the 10th standard, some of them, repeaters who were strong on mission again. That's another story. But so they formed this sort of chain at the gate, and I don't know from where they managed to get some hockey sticks and some homemade weapons or whatever you call it, and they formed a line outside the gate, and then followed by the 9th standard kids. Again, some of them repeaters that should have been there, but it worked well for that situation. And they all stood there and they made this really strong sort of chain at the gate. And they said, irrespective of what happens, the teachers stay inside, the younger kids stay inside, and until help arrives, nobody will move this gate and nobody will dare to cross this gate. And we will stand here. And that was a great sense of community at that time. And let me just add this. This was a convent school, so, and at that point, nobody gave a shit. It was Hindus and Muslims and Christians, and everybody stood in that community line and stood as a barrier between what could have been terrifying. We didn't know where the next bomb was coming or the next riot was coming. But irrespective of who was what, or the Hindu Muslim bullshit aside, people stood in a line, they protected and they stood their ground, and everybody got home safe until the, and there was no WhatsApp about that time. Until the point everybody got home safe, that line stood there like a community, and many of them are friends even today, and they stand as strong as they did then. So I think there's no better way to define what community can be, irrespective of where you come from or where you belong. But that is truly the power of community today.
There are two things that actually come to mind, and this is pertinent to art and culture. And I go back to a conversation which I had with this Suneni Sharma 2 weeks back, 2 weeks or 3 weeks back. And Suneni Sharma is Surinder Kaur's granddaughter. Granddaughter. So let's take this scenario to like mid 1960s and like beginning 1970s. There are a lot of Punjabi songs that we have heard, like Kali Deri Budhe Baradar Lal, all of these songs, and then Mit Teri Akh Kashni, and all of the remixes which have been coming up, and all of us, and that's what I have been picking up. People think that these are folk songs. This is part of Lok Sangeet, Lokala Sangeet, Lokala. It's not. It's not. These were actually compositions which were made by my grandfather, K. Palwala. And there were a bunch of singers like Surinder Kaur, Prakash Kaur, and many other people. And there was this, and 3 weeks back, I met her granddaughter. And very interestingly, she said that, Namit, imagine that time in Delhi where all of these people were together, going in and out of each other's houses. And like उन्होंने एक बड़ी छोटी सी चीज, बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज बताई कि जितनी भी बैठक वगैरह होती थी, जो भी बैठक होती थी, वो एक्चुअली होती थी सुरेंद्र आंटी के घर, सुरेंद्र कौर के घर. और सुरेंद्र कौर के हस्बैंड जो है उनका बिजनेस कुछ और था. सुरेंद्र कौर वाज, आई मीन सुरेंद्र कौर इज लाइक दिस एन एम्बलम, इज अ लेजेंड. एंड जो भी कॉम्पोजिशन वगैरह होती थी वो वहीं पे होती थी. मेरे नाना जी जो थे के बना वहीं पे बैठ के, तो उनको ये भी पता होता था, सुरेंद्र कौर को ये भी पता था, सुरेंद्र आंटी है वो कॉल, सुरेंद्र आंटी को ये भी पता था कि पन्नी को जो है 7 बजे के बाद जो है वो ऑमलेट खा लेगा, स्नैक्स खा लेगा, लेकिन घर पे जाके खाना खाएगा. He would eat his dinner with. And imagine all of these people like Shiv Kumar Batalvi, writers like Rajinder Singh, all of them, imagine coming and meeting together in this house and creating stuff. And that's when Suneni told me, and she said that, imagine the power of community, imagine the power of all of these people coming together and creating that. अब 40-50 साल बाद, these are emblems that we live by. Like when we talk about Punjabi music and we talk about Punjabi music of the 60s and the 70s, you cannot separate it from Surinder Kaur, Prakash Kaur, Pushpa Hans, all of these people. And all of these people, imagine coming together. हर शाम को, आज शाम को किसके घर पे बैठना है, आज शाम को किसके घर पे जो है ना कौन सा म्यूजिक क्या क्रिएट होगा, कुछ पता नहीं है. All of these legendary compositions which we know as folk songs were not folk songs, they were created by this community for all of us to sort of live through that. These are the roots. So communities actually function on that level. आज के डेट में आपको ये नेबरहुड फेस्टिवल दिखाई दे रहा है, बट यहाँ पे बहुत सारी चीजें क्रिएट हो गई. वो 8 साल बाद क्या होने वाला है, यू डोंट नो. द बिगेस्ट एग्जांपल, आई वुड लाइक टू टेक रोशन साहब्स एग्जांपल. Started off communes like in such a small way, alternative spaces, and suddenly, and today we have social media, and people constantly talk about the weight of social media, but I actually see it very differently. I don't have too many followers, but what I really like about it is that you can reach out to people, and that's what commune did. that one video which goes viral, and then people start talking about, okay, who is doing this stuff, and then more people get connected with it. And after now, I mean, Commune has been alive for 8-9 years. It's such a big festival, and people really aspire to be part of that community. So community brings people together, and you don't know what is getting created. And I don't think Surinder Kaur, or for that matter, my grandfather or Prakash Kaur or all of those people knew what they were going to create. They were just together having fun. They were just having fun, and they knew that this is the music that is making some money for them at that point, and they didn't know. उनको नहीं पता था कि ये actually ऐसे create होती है. So that's on the community level. That's one example. The second example is actually my mom, who was and is a homemaker, has been a homemaker for 37 years until this actually happened to her. Never stepped outside her house. मतलब घर से कभी मतलब पापा का बगैर निकले नहीं, ये वाला. Not that she is एकदम नहीं मैं मतलब किचन में रहती रूड बताती ऐसे नहीं. She's very fiery.
Yeah.
Very fiery. And let's paint a realistic picture. But she was someone who was just very outgoing, and she was someone who was very close with all my friends and all our friends, essentially me and my wife. And all our friends are theatre friends from the industry, and we would have these regular get-togethers in our house where she would be like cracking jokes, making food, feeding us, and at the same time, we are having a great time. And every time, you won't believe, my friend Pooja Suru, whenever she would come home, she would always say, "Yaar, Yamni auntie has to act. She has to become an actor." And I would be like, "Yeah, she will act." And keeping an audience alive at home is different than being in front of the camera. And she said, "Nahi, yaar, there is an actor in it." And she ended up doing like little chota mota plays, like in alternate spaces, whatever you get. And I thought this would probably be it. And she was pretty good. And she was getting better at it. Little did I know. Then 2000, yes, you're right, 2018 that was when the film came out, but 2016 was when it was shot, 2016, 2017. I get a call from Rajat, Mr. Rajat Prabhu, who's making a film, and he says, "Okay, I want to test you." I go and test. Rajat doesn't carry a mobile phone. I know he still carries it. There's always a phone call that comes from his office. He calls me up and he says, "Okay, so the thing is, your test was horrible. You're not part of the film." I said, "Okay, I need to tell you that." But I tested someone else because the casting director insisted that this person should be tested, and she is in the film. That was my mom. So she said, so he was like, her test was she was fantastic, and she's a complete natural, and I think she should be acting. And that's how her acting journey began. And before I knew it, she had done Sweedhaga, a film called Sweedhaga. And before I knew it, she's the first one in the family, and our family is full of actors and writers now. Okay? Nepotism thoda chal raha hai. She was nominated for the Filmfare. And that year, you had Surekha Sekhri in the supporting actor category, Surekha Sekhri, Katrina Kaif, and Yamini Das.
Wow.
I was genuinely very scared because mom has not stepped out of the house 37 years. Hey, mommy, kya karegi? And the director called me up, Sweedhaga ke Sharad called me up, and he said, "Okay, mother, just do this small part. अच्छा और एक और काम करना, उनको ना लाइनें करवा देना." So, see, the community is working. The community is working. It's happening for that one person who's not stepped outside the house for 37 years. Okay, and they see that spark. And he said, "Tu लाइनें करवा देना, तू भी set पे आते रहना, so it will be nice. She'll not feel out of place." And I was really scared, and outdoor schedules are tough. They are really, really tough even for us, when we are away from home for 2 months and 3 months, and she was in a place in a small town called Chanderi. She was going to be there for 2.5 months, and Rajat and everyone were like, how is she going to manage? And and to tell you the truth, every time I landed up on set, my mom was becoming more and more comfortable because, I mean, if truth be told, she was not competition with anyone.
Except Katrina here.
She's not competition to anyone. स्पॉट बॉय भी आके उनको अपनी प्रॉब्लम्स बता रहे हैं, साथ में अनुष्का शर्मा भी बोल रही है, अरे यार मेरी नई नई शादी हुई है, विराट साउथ अफ्रीका चला गया, घर हमारा जो है, and she's like the mother to everyone was calling her Amma. And before I knew it, that film had released, and now she has an active career. She has an active career. It's community. It's community which is actually working for you, working with you. You can't live alone, man.
There's a concept of blue zone, right, on the earth. And essentially, these are the areas where people typically live much longer, like 90s and 100s. And examples are Okinawa in Japan and Suddenly, right? And when a lot of people did research, essentially the finding was that the sense of community is really, really strong there, right? So now in that context, I would just like to understand from panelists that are you engaged with communities in some way and helping creating these blue zones? Like either capacity of a citizen or an artist or a professional?
What was the definition of blue zone? What is it? Exactly the longest.
Strong community there and it's very, very long.
Oh, okay.
I read it.
Like coalition government.
Yeah.
So are we helping create blue zones? Is that what you're saying?
Some way I helping part some community cities are artists.
I mean, we're trying. It's not working. I don't know about creating a blue zone. And see, I think, again, in some context, what we try to make places as comfortable as possible. I can come back to the example of Princess. We try, at least I try, I mean, I don't know other people. People that have worked with me or have, the other independent done shows, other shows me as well. At Koshini.
Yeah.
So we try to create safe spaces, let me say it like that. And I've already done that, whether it's the company I run or whether it's the sets that I'm on. There's no screaming and shouting on my set. Ever. You will never find, I've also directed someone directing more movies. You will never find, there's calm, there's peace. Film sets can often be, especially with directors, who think that they have sent men to go to the moon or invented a god to California. A lot of directors have this attitude, and film people sometimes tend to think that they've achieved something much greater than God. God complex is to put it mildly. Black quantum physics, the particle theory as black, some shit. So in our own little way, we keep it simple. No screaming, shouting. Directors see on a shelf on my set get fired pretty quickly. So in that sense, we try to bring that sense of Shakespeare, that blue zone, so to speak, which is shockingly and sadly rare. Lots of people are treated terribly, especially there's a weird sort of hierarchy on sets, where people on the lower rung are treated badly, and then it sort of encourages a sort of servile attitude. Then people come to you and touch your feet, and people get very excited about this relationship. So I try to not do that. I'm just being a personal person. We try to keep it very clean. We try to keep it very safe. We may not be the biggest production house in the country, but in our own way, people that work with us are happy. They come back to work with us. People in the film business will be shocked. We'll reduce rates and drop money to have better experiences, which is one of the unique parts of this. And I think a lot of that happens with us because people have a nice time. They feel safe. They feel loved. They feel wanted. So that's really, that's the best that we can do in our zone to create a blue zone, so to speak. No predators on our side. That I know. That I know.
No, I remember this actually. I read it in Ikigai. I think it's I think the opening chapter, which is talking about this research which has been done in a lot of places around the world where people have lived longer, and I think it's Hawaii, it's the Mediterranean belt, and Japan. And one of the key things that has come out is that all of these people have been part of some community or the other I personally did not buy it totally. But yes, these people have lived longer, so obviously there's evidence to it. This was, and people might judge me for it, and I'm okay actually. This was because this is slightly religious in nature, and the moment it sort of becomes religious and spiritual, it becomes a tricky sort of a space. It talks about faith. 1 year back or something, there was, I mean, he's the Guruji for Bollywood, and a lot of people are sort of going for these satsangs. And I started going for these satsangs with a lot of questions in my mind. I was like, and I personally, I do not endorse anything which has to do with religion or because I feel that this is it's not like I'm against religion, but it's also I feel it's something personal. It has to be it is your own relationship, and it should not be advertised. But the answer to your question, there were certain things that sort of I ended up doing as part of the community, which was like seva, just going out there, meeting people not from our fraternity, not our world at all, and at least the place where I was coming from, there was a lot of patience that I had to sort of, incur. But it did give me a lot of hope. And it also sort of, shifted something inside me and told me that, there's a world that exists. And there are many kinds of worlds that exist in this world. So going back to what I read in Ikigai, this was not a push for me to sort of live longer. I want to live longer, and that's why I want to be part of so many communities. But no, it's I think that kind of interaction, that kind of you just sort of it just you're just meeting more people and you're just interacting with a lot of ideas, and that sort of I guess it just gives you hope. Yeah.
That would essentially be my, like the creative spaces. I always say my interest in cinema specifically is also because of, like you said, it's the greatest team sport. And I love team sports. So I always say sports, food, and the theater and spirituality. These are the things that bring everybody together with one vision. And somehow people, well, except for the ones who are screaming and shouting in the hall, usually they come together for common passion and common vision. Passion is anything that you're passionate about creates a great sense of community. So whatever it is, but this is also something that I've experienced. I also had a major rejection of specific religious spaces because of maybe a majoritarian guilt or whatever the way I was raised, and I felt that having gone past that personally myself, allowing myself to experience it without judgment, I actually found that the same thing, that there is a lot of I'm very surprised at the amount of sense of community that shows up in those spaces, and I'm very happy to see that there are a lot of young people that are using that as a support system, which is great. But yeah, I think the blue zone, this I'm saying in a larger umbrella. I have, from when I was young, would always question, what is my contribution? What is my contribution? I am politically aware, but not very politically active. I always wondered, do I know enough to talk about things? So I always wondered, what am I doing? What am I contributing to the world, to this space? And I came up with something very simple, which I still hold by. My greatest gift is that I'm a loving person. And I have a great sense of optimism and love, and my job is to spread that. And that is what I do in any community, in any space that I come up. So for me, everything is somehow basically driven by love. Even if I show up in a space where I feel like, this is a creative community that needs support, then I'll show up. If there is I like working with people who are probably fighting against odds to create something that is not supported by the usual structures of society, or doing anything which allows, like you said, any kind of space of seva or whatever. Like I just went to Vipassana. Again, it was a great, I've gone many years ago, I've gone back, and it's interesting to see the kind of people. Again, there were so many young people at it, as opposed to when I went back 18 years ago. So, but yeah, I think the whole point of community also is to keep opening up a little bit, a little bit, a little bit more. You know, we all help each other open up a little bit more to our own lives, to our own thoughts, to our own prejudices, to our own, ideas and judgments, and it's an opportunity to expand a little bit more. So,
So, right. So I had an idea. So I had an idea basically, right? So as a duo band called Namit and Bookwala, right? But I had an idea, and we could like create a new community band right now here, and we're gonna call it Namit and Aap, right? Now the challenge is basically that, of course, if Namit is comfortable, he's gonna sing, but then all of you will sing together, right? We get this new band called Namit and Aap will basically be live, right?
but then should we be Namit and Hum?
Yeah, Namit and Hum.
Because you know me, I mean,
Nice.
Yeah.
What do they think? I mean, any pop song, wake up set, wake up set.
tell us about experience of acting Ranveer Kapoor like in 2009.
That will not be exactly. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I sing this song all the time. It's just like my favorite. All family parties and all. Yeah. This is very good. This is a Kishore Kumar song. Wow. आज तुमसे ये पहली बार हो, तुम ही तो आई हो जीवन में मेरे, प्यार 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 कहना है, कहना है, कहना है, कहना है, आज तुमसे ये पहली बार हो, तुम ही तो आए हो जीवन में मेरे, प्यार प्यार प्यार, तुम ही तो आए हो जीवन में मेरे, प्यार 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 कहना है.
You feel like I hope all of you had a great time, and all of you, I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.